Okay. Greetings, everybody. Greetings. This your girl Tiffany coming through live in effect right here on the StreamYard. So I'm kind of late getting started, but that's okay. Anyway, today's topic we're going to be dealing with Dr. Lee Williams Jr. So many people don't know who Dr. Lee Williams was. Okay, he was one of the founders of the Association of Black Psychology, which is a program that honor, and it was like a membership organization that honor black psychologists in America and throughout the African diaspora. Also, Dr. Robert Williams was also known for the BISH test, which is Black Intellectual Testing Cultural Homogeneity 100. So we're going to explain a little bit about that. And then he also coined the term Ebonics. So Ebonics is what we currently speak as African Americans, or what is also known as African American Vernacular English. So we're going to go into that as well. All right. But anyways, let's get started. Let's get it started. Never mind the vocals. The vocals are horrible. 100%. All right. Okay. So, Ebonics. So this is Dr. Robert Lee Williams. Okay. And as we all know that Dr. Robert Williams had also passed away. Well, many don't know that. So, yeah, he just recently passed back in August. I just looked up the information online. So, it's kind of like what prompted me to do this, because I feel that it's necessary that we need to know these type of information about our people and what they have contributed, because we often are misled to believe that we haven't done anything for society, or we have not made any contribution for society, and that things did not work out for us and all this other stuff. So yeah. All right, so let's get started real quick. Okay, there we go. Now, who is Robert Williams? Dr. Robert Lee Williams was a professor um, emeritus of psychology and African and Afro American studies at Washington University in St. Louis, and a prominent figure in the history of African American psychology. He was well known as a stalwart critic of racial and cultural biases in IQ testing, for coining the word Ebonics in 1973, and for developing the Black Intelligence test of cultural homogeneity. He published more than 60 professional articles and several books. He was a founding member of the Association of Black Psychology and served as its second president. All right, so let's go down to his childhood. So Robert Lee Williams was born in Biscoe, Arkansas on February 20th, 1930. His father, Robert L. Williams, worked as a millwright and died when his son was just 5 years old. Williams' mother, Rosie L. Williams, worked in the homes of white families until her death in 1978. He had one sister, Dorothy Jean. He married Ava L. Kemp in 1948 at the age of 18. They had 8 children, 17 grandchildren, and 13 great grandchildren. His 8 college educated children included 4 psychologists, a nurse, a journalist, a teacher, and a leather craftswoman. All right, and then the education. He graduated from Dunbar High School in Little Rock at the age of 16 before attending Dunbar Junior College for 1 year. Williams earned a BA degree cum laude in distinction in field from Philander Smith College in 1953. He earned a MED from Wayne State University in educational psychology in 1955, at the time when all graduate programs in the South remained segregated, and a PhD in 1961 from Washington University in St. Louis in clinical psychology. All right. So education always been Dr. Williams' passion. His passion was always to make sure that he understood his environment and be able to bring about proper education to his own people. So as you can see, the tellings in his biography about his children, they all went on to pursue degrees in psychology, become a nurse, and crafts, and doing some type of crafting field. So he was always on top of education. Education was very important to him. So that's what made him decide, hey, I want to study psychology, because how can we get about bringing proper education to our people, and how do we get our people to really want to get involved and be able to understand themselves and understand the curriculums that they are dealing with and other issues that come along with it. Okay, so let's continue. All right, anyways, now let's go down to where it says career. Williams worked as a staff psychologist at Arkansas State Hospital, at the first African American psychologist to be hired at a state mental health facility in Arkansas. He later served as chief psychologist at the Jefferson Barracks Veterans Affairs Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri, director of a hospital improvement project in Spokane, Washington, and a consultant for the National Institute of Mental Health. In 1968, he was a founding member of the National Association of Black Psychologists and served as its second president. While serving as president of the Association of Black Psychologists from 1969 to 1970, he created the 10-point plan and mailed it to 300 colleges and universities. This plan was instrumental in recruiting and sustaining Black graduates, students in master's and PhD psychology programs throughout the United States. From 1970 to 1992, he served as a professor of psychology and African American studies at Washington University in St. Louis. He founded the Department of Black Studies at Washington University and served as its first director, developing a curriculum that would serve as a model throughout the country. All right, and let's go on to more information. Now let's look up Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity. William created the Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity by drawing from a glossary of African American speech and personal experiences, danger, testing, and dehumanizing Black children, though structured similarly to traditional IQ testing. European Americans scored consistently lower on the bitch than African Americans. Williams did not conclude it, as had white psychologists, that disproved the intellectual inferiority of Europe. Then he also came up with the term Ebonics. He created the term Ebonics, a combination of ebony and phonics, to refer to African American English, on January 26, 1973 at a conference called the Cognitive and Language Development of Black Children. In 1975, he edited a book entitled Ebonics, The True Language of Black Folks, which explains the African roots of Ebonics and refuted the popular conception that Ebonics was simply slang or deficient English. Again, excuse me. Again, we all grew up speaking Ebonics, okay? And we all still use Ebonics to this day. And I am one of those people that use a lot of Ebonics. But that does not take away the intelligence of our people, because we have a way of speaking English. We have a way of using English language. All right. So let me talk real brief. Let's talk about the Gullah Geechee language. The Gullah Geechee language consists of African native tongue that's mixed with English. Creole, which is commonly spoken by those in the Texas and Louisiana area. It's a combination of broken French, right, and English combined together, and African tongue. You see what I mean? So, with that being said, we always use Ebonics because that's how we was able to communicate. And the earliest form of Ebonics, before it was called Ebonics, can go way back into slavery, when when the uh, when the slaves were communicating with each other. Right, what they did was they took the English language and they combined the African languages together because that was their way of communicating, and they were trying to do that to keep the slave masters from understanding what they were trying to say or try to convey what they were talking about. So that's how they had that type of dialogue with one another. So that's their way of interacting. So before it was called Ebonics, right, it was always around, but later on, Dr. Williams, decided to put out that term to describe that this is a distinctive language that we speak amongst ourselves in our own community. All right. So let's go ahead and continue. Black personality theory. Williams formulated his Black personality theory presented in his second book, The Collective Mind, towards an Afrocentric theory of Black personality. His theory argued that Black personality cannot be understood using European philosophy and values. Instead, the Black personality theory would draw on an African philosophy of collectiveness, diametrically opposed to Western individualism. So, the Black personality theory is basically dealing with ethnoculture. So what we call ethnoculture means that, not ethnoculture, ethnocentricity. All right. So that means when I say ethnocentricity, that means that it's centered around cultural ideology. Okay. It's centered around cultural philosophy. So our culture as African American is creolized, meaning that it is mixed with the combination of Western, but more so African. So you just can't understand our culture from the Western point of view. Unless you are a foreigner and that's how you see it, because we're in America. But you have to understand it from the perspective of an African point of view as well. So only people that really can relate to our culture, right, or what we developed, is those who come from those backgrounds, those who have been around us, those who was raised in the environment like us. Okay? So that's what you call ethnocentricity. So when Dr. Williams was talking about Black personality theory, he was talking about ethnocentricity. That's all he was dealing with. So, and hello to my dear friend. I hope all is going well with you. Thank you for tuning in. Let's see. What else I got? All right. Racial scripting. He argued that white children acquire racist predispositions at a young age through the process of racial scripting. In his work, he identifies a number of myths and stereotypes that form these racial scripts, including the myth of Black genetic deficiency, the deteriorating Black family, cultural deprivation, Black language deficiency, Black self-hatred, damaged Black psyche, the superior sexual stud, the superior Black athlete, the lazy Negro. He argues that these myths and attitudes from a racial script or schema which the adult person draw upon to understand situation. Thus, racial scripting received in childhood can shape the conceptions of reality of an adult. And then goes down to talk about popular exposure. Williams appeared in the public eye on numerous occasions, including television appearance with Dan Rather, Phil Donahue, Montel Williams. His work has been cited by many newspapers and served as a theme for an episode of Good Times. All right, and then you can also see on the cultural psychology. Now let's look up the Bitch test real fast. Okay. Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity, or BITCH 100, is an intelligence test created by Robert Williams in 1972, oriented towards the language, attitudes, and lifestyles of African Americans. Nature of test. The test consisted of a multiple choice questionnaire in which the examinee was asked to identify the meaning of 100 words as they were then used in black ghettos. Example of words used include alley, apple, black, draught, blood, boogie joogie, and boot. The original sample used in the experiment consists of 100 white and 100 black St. Louis high school students, aged 16 to 18, half of them being from low socioeconomic levels and the other half being from middle income levels. Williams also had data from 2 other samples of blacks and whites. These samples included 25 black and 13 white college students from Mississippi and 19 white graduate students from Boston University. Out of the 200 students who participated in the original sample, the 100 black students answered 87 out of 100 answers correctly, and the white answered 51 out of 100 questions correctly. In the other samples, the results were similar, with the black student scores being drastically different from those of the whites. Then goes down with interpretation. The result of the test showed that the black group performed much better than the white group. White students performed more poorly on this test than black, suggesting that there are important dissimilarities in the cultural backgrounds of blacks and white. The result of these tests and examination of BITCH 100 confirmed Robert Williams' belief that his intelligence test dealt with content material that was familiar to blacks. However, there existed a restriction of range in the current form of the test, thereby limiting its usefulness as an instrument used for selection. Some argue that these findings indicate that test bias play a role in producing the gap in IQ test scores. All right. Both of these tests demonstrate how cultural content on intelligent tests may lead to culturally biased score results. These criticisms of cultural content may not apply to cultural-free tests of intelligence. The BITCH 100 and the Chilling test Chilling tests both have explicit cultural assumption, while normal standardized tests are only hypothesized to have implicit bias. The fact that a test can have bias does not necessarily prove that a specific test does have bias. However, even on cultural free tests, test biases may play a role, since due to their cultural backgrounds, some test takers do not have the familiarity with the language and culture of the psychological and educational tests that implicitly assumed in the assessment procedure. All right. So, the purpose of the BITCH test, the main objective is to show the difference in the ethno part of education. So when I mean ethno, going back to culture. So there's a cultural differences right? So it's like, okay, it's like somebody who can speak French and speak German. So if somebody speaking French and speaking German, guess what? They saying the same thing, but they don't know that they're saying the same thing. That was the concept with the bitch test. Okay. So when the white people were given a test and they were the multiple choice questions were based on ebonics, right, or terminology that is more useful in the black household, many of them did not pass it because you know why? They didn't use the same terminology. They didn't use those words that majority of black people use in their community. And same way when black people was given a test and they was using standard English terminology, right, or technical terms, many of them could not pass it because they were not familiar with those terms. So those are not the terms that they understood. So what he did was, okay, to make the test a lot easier for those, especially African American children, because there was a stereotype that black kids were unintelligent, was biologically inferior when it came down to academics and education. So he wanted to dispel all that myth by creating a test where it was designed for African Americans to make it a lot more easier for them to be able to answer the question and be able to get the gist of it, because he didn't like the way that the test was set up. So that's why he called it the bitch test. Get it? So let me go back real quick. All right, so he passed away on August the 12th of 2020 in St. Louis. He was 90 years old. So let's go and look up some more information. All right, so right here, here's a video that I want to share. Well, you know what? I'm not going to share the video because of the copyright. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and read this article. It comes from Source, Washington University in St. Louis. All right, so this is what he stated right here in this article. Black studies were born in the days of high protest. William recalled in a 2019 interview with Gerald Early, the Merle Killing Professor of Modern Letters and current chair of African and African American Studies. It was really not an easy task. It was really not an easy task. There were many unanswered questions at the time. Even the faculty had questions about the importance or significance of Black studies. Nevertheless, he added, I saw a great deal of opportunity. As chair, Williams quickly established an honors program and awards program partnership with other campuses, areas, and opportunity for international travel, as well as the Independent Institute for Black Studies, through which he conducted much of his research. In 1972, he developed the Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity, which made national headlines for demonstrating the cultural biases inherent in standardized testing. And he said, my prediction was that African American would do much better on the Black Intelligence Test than they would on conventional tests, and white students would do very poorly. William told Early, dryly added that was supported. All right. And so it said that Williams' wife of nearly 70 years, Ava Lee Kemp Williams, died in 2018. The couple is survived by 7 children: Julian, Levon, Larry, Revere, Dorothy, Robert, and Michael, all of whom study at Washington University, as well as 19 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. Although his education and knowledge of psychology issues related to African Americans laid the foundation for his career, Levon observed his greatest strength was Rosie Lee Mitchell, his mother, a Christian woman with a second grade education who valued education when he was little. She told him, "Boy, go get that piece of paper," and he did. So yeah, that was his life. Um, so yeah, he passed away on August the 12th of 2020 at the age of 90. All right, so this is one of his paperwork or one of his articles that he written regarding to the bitch test. All right, so right here it's called document resume. All right, it says Arthur Robert L. Williams, the bitch 100, a cultural specific test. It was written in September 1972. Then it says developmental work on the bitch, black intelligence scale of cultural homogeneity. Began approximately 2 years ago. The aim of the present paper is to describe the rational and evaluation of the bitch 100. Approximately 2 decades ago, psychologists and educators devoted considerable effort towards devising intelligence tests whose items were equally fair to persons from various socioeconomic levels. Especially during the period of 1950 to 1960, many articles pertaining to the cultural free and cultural fair and cultural comment tests appeared in the literature, although several tests claiming to be culturally fair were constructed during the 50s. None prove of great significance. The findings generally show lower predictive validity for culturally fair tests than for conventional ones. In a recent report, however, Williams 1972 pointed to certain fallacies in statistical forecasting, particularly when the moderator variable is taken under consideration. In his presidential address to Division 5 at the 1967 annual APA meeting, Wesman concluded that the search for a culture fair test was sheer nonsense. This writer essentially agrees with Westman, but for different reasons. Since the American society is pluralistic on the one hand and racist on the other, it would be virtually impossible to conceptualize an instrument which would be fair for all people: Asian, Black, Caucasian, Chianos, Indians, and Puerto Ricans. And see, that's the old article information that's been documented. It's called document resume. As regard to this whole testing program, cultural test, the bitch test 100. All right. Published on September 1972. All right, so let's see what else we can find. All right, so this article right here deals with the controversy about Ebonics. So I don't know how many of y'all remember when I was in school, the teachers used to correct you, right, when you spoke Ebonics. So let's say if you was talking to your friends and you and your friends interacted with each other, and then all of a sudden that teacher gonna walk by and start saying that's the incorrect way of saying this. That's not how you say that. You're supposed to say it like this. You're supposed to talk like this. Or they try to correct your vocabulary or whatnot, but don't understand that that's how you speak amongst each other. So yeah, try to get you to use proper English. So yeah, that's what the whole thing was dealing with. It was dealing with the whole concept of the controversy behind Ebonics. And Ebonics was looked at as broken English, Um, it was also looked at as it was seen as if somebody who spoke or used this style of language, that they have some form of um their intelligence level is not efficient. So that was this whole thing about, it was to combat against the stereotype about Ebonics. This article right here, it's called the Ebonics Controversy. Robert L. Williams, Washington University. All right. All right, so right here it says the basic goal of Oakland School District is to find better methods to instruct African American children in standard English and reading. The fundamental issue here is not whether Ebonics is a separate language or if the board is lowering standards. The issue is that for far too many African American children are not acquiring proficiency in standard English and reading to facilitate academic success and career mobility. Thus, the question that needs to be raised is, can we provide a world-class quality education for these children? It's clear it is clear that many African American children speak Ebonics or the home language, and they take it to school. That language is the language they have heard and learned from their grandmas, grandpas, mamas, and daddies. By the time they enter school, these children have internalized the basic features of the particular language in their environment. Thus, when these African American children enter school speaking Ebonics, they are told, don't talk like that. I remember that because I was one of those kids. And they may be scolded, criticized, and teased. This criticism continued throughout the elementary and secondary years. The important point is the important point here is that my language is me. It is an extension of my being, my essence. It is a reflection and badge of my culture. Criticism of my language is essentially a direct attack on my self-esteem and cultural identity. Somebody put, he developed the hold on, let me see. Somebody put, he developed the Wolsey model. Okay, you know what? Now that I got a little time to, I'm gonna look that up, the Wolsey model. Let's see what that is. Let's look up the Wolsey model. Hold on, let me look that up. Robert L. Williams. You sure he developed that? Because I don't see that information. Or maybe I'm spelling it wrong. Okay, so this is what I came across right here. I didn't came across the Wolsey model. I came across Wolsey Artists Collective. Is an organization of African American artists established in 1965 based in the Harlem section of New York City. Inspired by Black arts movement. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about Dr. Robert Lee Williams inventing that model. Mm-mm. I will have to find that source elsewhere, but okay. And then you also put African self-consciousness definition was designed by Dr. Williams. African self-consciousness. All right. Let me look into that because see, I always want to verify that. Hmm. Let me see something. Let me see this. Let me check this out. Hmm. Hmm. Let's see something here. Okay. So, regard to the concept about the African self-consciousness, let's read on and let's see. Um, it's written by Joseph A. Baldwin, Florida A&M University. Hmm. Okay, well, it doesn't say Dr. Robert Lee Williams came up with that either. The person that wrote that, his name was James A. Baldwin, and it's written in the Journal of Black Studies, which came out in 1984. So, you probably got it mixed up with somebody else. Um, yeah, you will have to send me that information. But anyways, you guys, thank you for tuning in. This your girl Tiffany French coming through live in effect. And I'll reconnect with you all later. So you guys, please take it easy and be safe out here. All right, man. Peace and power elevation be to you all. And I'll talk to y'all later. All right. Thank you.